Shall we begin? Let's begin now. Let's begin now.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Is that all you got?
Let's begin now.
What up? Oh, for sure.
Hi everybody,
How are you? I hope you're all very well. I hope you're not all too depressed about the goings on in the news at the moment. I know it's very, very depressing, but yeah, try and look on the bright side of life. That's really all the encouragement I've got for you at the moment. It's awful out there, isn't it? It's terrible. Hi everybody in the chat. Now I'm on YouTube and Rumble and Rockfin. I think I've got the chat set up correctly, although I can't see anything coming through at the moment. Maybe there's a bit of a lag. And I'm on Rockfin and Rumble, and I think I'm on Twitter as well. Let me just double check. All right, I am. I noticed the other night that I got some super chats, if you want to call them that, through a different platform, because I'm on Rumble and Rockfin as well. I haven't yet set up my software to receive the messages through Rockfin. I was just having to play about with it before I went live. I can't quite figure it out yet, but I'll try and figure that out for the next time I go live, which will be next week probably. I would have thought now. But yeah, if this is a super chat, you can't obviously send me donations through the YouTube chat. Just be aware that they take a cut. YouTube do. And then you have to get paid out through AdSense, and they take a cut. It's all Google related, and then obviously you have to get paid out through PayPal, and then they take a cut as well. So I remember a while ago I worked out that something like of every $10 sent through the super chat function on YouTube, you would get about 7. Google would take about 24% between the two sort of, cuts they would take through YouTube and AdSense, and then PayPal would as well, because you obviously have to get it paid out to your bank, etc. So yeah, if you do send super chats through there, they're more than welcome. Just be aware that you're sending Google a cut. However, you can send super chats directly to me through my direct PayPal, which is there underneath me, paypal.me/FJ Supplies. I have tried to change that, by the way. That's the sort of like a company almost I set up years ago that never really took off, and I was doing some other work anyway, and I can't change it. Otherwise I would change it to Gordon Dimmack. I just, for some reason, they wouldn't let me change it when I tried. So if you send them the questions through to FJ Supplies with a question or whatever you want to say, I'll read it out. One of those I didn't get to last time I was live was from Kinky, who sent me through. Everybody loves Kinky, don't they? Hi Kinky, if you're watching tonight, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get round to you the other night. Everybody loves a bit of kink. And she sent me a weird amount. Let me get to it, and I'll exactly what she said, because I do like to read out all of the words of encouragement, all the messages, etc., that you send through. I really appreciate it. Just dig it out. So yeah, like I say, you if you do, you can send them through PayPal, and I'll read them out tonight as I get to them. And current payment. Here we go. This is Kinky on YouTube. She said, following you for years. Glad to see you're back on YouTube. Hope this helps a little. Thank you, Kinky. I really appreciate it. And that was one of the ones I didn't get round to. One of the sort of super chats I didn't get round to the other night. Like I say, if you do send anything tonight through PayPal, just send a little note on it, and I'll read it out. And then therefore, you can skip the money that YouTube can't take a cut off for their service. I appreciate every penny, and obviously if you do send it through YouTube, then it's fine. I understand it can be convenient that way. YouTube, as you've heard recently, have blocked RT in the UK. We'll be talking about that tonight. Let me just say hello to everybody. Hi Ratty, how are you? I feel like it's all a massive setup, says Ratty. What's that? What's all a massive setup? Everything? Yeah, everything. Everybody, yeah. Really weird, isn't it? These last few years have been confusing for us all. I don't know what you mean by it's all a massive setup. I'm sure Ukraine, maybe. Greetings from Rotterdam. Hi, Leo. Greetings from Rotterdam. Don't be depressed, says Leo Brusselman. Yeah, don't be depressed. Just try and, there's been tough times before, and the world's got through them. So yeah, we need cool heads is what we need. We don't need people losing their heads and running around screaming and worrying and making the situation worse. That's what we don't need. We need people with, logical thinking heads, of which I can't believe, but I kind of might be one of them, hopefully. I don't know. How I became one of them, I don't know. Watching from Ethiopia, says Proverb. Hi Ethiopia. Very nice to hear from you. I hope everything is okay over there. I know it's been tough the last year in Ethiopia, as it has in many other places. New York City. Hi New York. How are you, Skibby? All right. Hi Ross. So, yeah, as I was saying, let's get into the first story. Hi Iceland, how are you? YouTube, yeah. So YouTube have banned RT from, well, not banned them, they've blocked them. Start recording, actually, I'll drop this as a video. YouTube have took the decision to block RT and Sputnik in the UK to their to people in the UK, to people who use their app in the UK. And we've seen similar things happen over the last 24 hours, 48 hours. There's all sorts of Russia bannings going on, especially with regards to their media. They have been, I think Sky have even taken the step to take RT off Sky today, I saw. So there's lots of censorship going on, and I know, and I have documented the struggles I've had with YouTube, growing my channel on YouTube, and other people in independent media have detailed how they've struggled as well, and how, it's interesting how people who toe the corporate line and parrot whatever the corporate narrative is, they get onto a different algorithm somehow, and they get promoted and pushed up. It's not necessarily that they're telling the truth. It's that they're promoting the stuff that the powers that be want promoted, and they're not talking about the things that power doesn't want to be talked about. In the last few years, we've seen people move away from YouTube as a result, especially in independent media. We've seen the rise of Rumble, we've seen the rise of Rockfin, of which I'm on live as well on both of those tonight. And lots of people have moved away from YouTube. Lots of people have been banned from YouTube as well, although I wasn't one of those. And as a result of that, we've seen the rise of many other apps. Many people have complained that YouTube has become what people complained about cable TV. People went to YouTube to get away from cable TV, and that's what YouTube has become. And because of that, other social media platforms have done well as a result. TikTok is obviously one of them. It's exploded over the last few years. TikTok has. And although YouTube is sort of directed at longer videos, TikTok has always been shorter videos. Up until last year, that was, when they brought out a feature of 3-minute videos. Now, when they brought out the feature of 3-minute videos, all of a sudden I became interested. Because in 3 minutes, although I can't give you enough information in a minute on a complex subject, in 3 minutes you've got quite a block of time there to be able to get enough information over. So after a few months, I started delving into TikTok myself with 3-minute videos. Very few of my videos are shorter than a minute, although I think I've done 2 maybe. And now, after about 6 months of that, and the growth of TikTok as a result of it, they've decided to extend the video time now to 10 minutes. This is from TheVerge.com. It's pretty much the only article I can find written on this. I should have probably written one myself. But is TikTok a short-form video platform, they say? It seems less and less so after the company announced today it's expanding the maximum length for uploads to 10 minutes. For people like me who tell, a story and put as much complex information into videos, on complex, situations and complex topics that you have to maybe go back to the 1950s in some cases. I'm thinking about Iran, to actually be able to give as much information, to give the context that the audience needs to infer the correct, or to infer as much information as possible. Needs longer sometimes. 10 minutes. That's a massive amount now you can put in that. TikTok has been testing ever longer uploads for years, recently introducing the 3-minute videos last July. So this is only 9 months that the 3-minute videos have been going, and already they're jumping up to 10. The live streaming on there already it's really quite. I'll talk about that in a bit. When I went live the other day, I was live on TikTok as well on my phone, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But this latest update is the largest increase yet and will now roll out globally. We're all always thinking about new ways to bring value to our community and enrich the TikTok experience, said a company spokesperson in a statement. Last year, we introduced longer videos, giving our community more time to create and be entertained on TikTok. Today, we're excited to start rolling out the ability to upload videos that are up to 10 minutes, which we hope would unleash even more creative possibilities for our creators around the world. It really will. For somebody in like independent media like myself, for other creators who are maybe doing videos about history projects, telling the story about somebody's life, so anybody who wants to put as much information into a video now, TikTok's going to be a real viable option if they haven't looked at it before. Before it was just it was almost like a Vine when it first came out. Do you remember Vines that were just a few seconds and they were funny as hell? And that's kind of what TikTok was at the beginning. It was, funny 5-10 second videos. I remember the guy on the skateboard drinking, I think, Gatorade as Fleetwood Mac was playing. Do you remember that? That went super viral and got millions and millions of views. But now, longer videos get millions of views as well. I'm testament to that on the platform. I'll talk about it in a bit. Some users were given the news as a notification within the app. I was one of those people, as shared on Twitter by social media consultant and analyst Matt Navarra. Although TikTok's meteoric rise to popularity was founded on a never-ending stream of short videos tailored to catch users' attention. Obviously, that guy on the skateboard, is testament to that. The company has been pushing longer content for a while. Longer videos allow TikTok to better compete with YouTube, which skews heavily towards lengthy content. This is one of the reasons why independent media flocked to YouTube a few years ago when it sort of the boom time happened, because they could upload. I remember one of my first videos was like 45 minutes long, trying to pack as much information in there as possible to give the people that are listening to you as broad a view as possible to make their own, to come to their own conclusions on any subject. You need as long as possible to do that. Now TikTok, this could be a game changer. At the same time, a switch to longer content may hurt the firm by limiting the amount of data it can collect on users' watching habits, which is what allows it to customize the algorithms it uses to attract users in the first place. In other words, getting the length of content right is something of a balancing act. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be things that they've got to incorporate in that. One of the things you don't see a lot of on TikTok is adverts, and you can skip them quite quickly. I was working out yesterday, and I have a routine on YouTube that I sometimes work out to. I do some, I call her Devil to Batter Lady. It's like about 12 minutes long, and if you incorporate it into a routine, it will kill you. And ads will come on when you're halfway through a routine that's 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off. You'll be 24 seconds into a 45-second block, and an advert will come on. And you can't skip it. You got to wait 5 seconds, and now you got to wait another 50. Can break up your routine. Now, obviously, that's not what people use TikTok for, but that's just one of the things. You can't skip the adverts, can you, on YouTube anymore? You used to be able to. On TikTok, you can just flick through them. It's got ad there, and you can flick through. Some of them are quite good anyway. But I'm sure there's other ways that they can monetize the platform, especially if there's longer videos on there. There's all sorts of sponsorship deals. I know TikTok is heavily in merchandising as well. So this really puts them in the same ballpark as YouTube. At the same time, a switch to longer content may hurt the firm by limiting the amount of data. I've read that bit. In other words, getting the length of content right is a balancing act. I've read that. Ironically, this article continues, as TikTok expands to offer creators and users longer content, its rivals, spurred by TikTok's success, have done the opposite. Instagram launched short-form videos in form of Reels, YouTube has aptly named Shorts, and Snapchat offers what it calls Spotlight. All these companies are trying to get the formula right. Here's what the formula is, guys, girls, whatever you want to call yourselves. Let people speak. Give people an equal platform and let them speak. Don't bump up one person's content and squash up another person's. Just let them speak. Give it a fair platform. There's more problems that you're going to come into with that you're going to hit along the way, and other platforms like YouTube have already had massive problems that they've had to get around, especially with independent media and the rise of independent media on their platform. It's going to happen again as well to YouTube, to TikTok. Now they've implemented this 10-minute function, because there's going to be more people doing what I do on the platform for sure. Speaking to The Verge, Navarra says its longer form content is in general easier to monetize and keeps people on the platform longer. This is true, but he says TikTok will now need to work out exactly how to position and present these videos on its platform. They could do it with a dedicated home for a longer form content, as it doesn't fit so well in the vertical feed with shorter stuff people are used to whizzing through at speed, he says. Okay, so TikTok doing this is huge. It does. Especially for people like myself, it really does give them an option to move over to TikTok now. However, there are problems in that. I've been doing well on TikTok. Been doing very well. I've only been on there, 5 minutes, it seems. And already I'm nearly 100,000 subscribers. I mentioned this in the live stream I did the other night. I mentioned that it was going well, and I shouldn't have said a goddamn thing, because the second I came off the live stream, I came off the broadcast, and I came off the feed because I was broadcasting on TikTok as well. I got a notification from TikTok that I'd got not one, but 2 community guideline strikes from TikTok for videos that I'd posted last week. Videos which got hundreds of thousands of views. One of the videos that I posted last week got 2.4 million views. It's huge. But 2 of the videos got community guideline strikes. Now, this is the problem that they're going to have, and the problem that YouTube had with moderating content. It's very difficult to be able to moderate vast amounts of content at volume well. I've probably had about 60 videos on TikTok. All of which are, or most of which, vast majority, like all but 1 or 2 are over a minute long. And many of them are the maximum 3 minutes. And of all the videos that I've posted on TikTok, a huge amount of them, a really high percentage, have been taken down for community guidelines violations. They're having the same problem that YouTube was having in moderating content at volume. Of the like 60, 70 videos I've done, I think about 15 of them had community guidelines violations up until last week. Now, I appealed every single one of them, and all but 2 were reversed. So this is obviously a problem at their end. They're obviously going over and above, what something on the TikTok algorithm is triggering something. Whatever I'm saying is triggering them and it shouldn't. Or I'm being mass reported by people. That's a possibility, especially with what I talk about, which is, I talk a lot about Palestine and Yemen, etc. And human rights abuses, and I'm sure there's lots of people that I'm annoying that report what I do. So maybe that's a situation. But 2 of them, TikTok upheld. They didn't explain why they upheld it, but they upheld those for what they call integrity and authenticity. Now, those 2 videos, incidentally, are both on YouTube. And both of them are fine on YouTube. So why TikTok have taken them down, I don't know. I've asked them, they haven't replied at all. They reply with just look at community guidelines. I'm like, I have, and I can't see how my video has violated the community guidelines. Can you explain to me? They can't explain to me. So already I've got 2 strikes against me that I don't know why I've got the strikes against me. So already I'm on thin ice. One more, my video, and I can't comment. One more, and I can't get cash out from the Creator Fund, which is pennies anyway. But another one after that, and I get banned. And that's exactly what's happened. I got 2, one after another, the other night, and now I can't post anything on TikTok. I'm banned from posting until tomorrow. I got like a 4-day ban, and then. On the evening that I got those 2 community guideline strikes, I then got another one. So I got another 3. So now I've got 5 strikes against me. One of them, I appealed, and for some reason I appealed, and they immediately reversed that. It's possibly because I only said about 6 words in the whole thing. But the other 2 still got community guidelines strikes against me. Still don't know why they were taken down. If they are reversed, I don't know why it was taken down in the first place. I don't know seemingly what the rules are, because they've taken 15, 16, 20 videos down, and only 2 of them they've said, yeah, you violated. So I don't know where the line is here. Meanwhile, you open TikTok and there's women on there who look 12 who are simulating oral sex live. There's other people who are snorting cocaine on there to 4,000 viewers live, and they don't get taken down. Meanwhile, O'Gordy talking truth about hegemony and global awfulness, I get taken down. Now, I understand that they're moderating content at volume here. I understand it's difficult, but I've tried to speak to them and I've got no reply. It's the same as it was with YouTube. If you remember, with YouTube, I got to 18,000 subscribers and they might as well have just banned me because they're not showing my content to anybody now. They're just not. If you look back at what my videos used to get years ago to what they get now, you can see. They switch me off when they switch me off, and we know why. So now it's a case of, with TikTok, it's a game changer. This is 10-minute videos. Yeah, bring it on. Especially with the amount of people that I can amass followers-wise. This is how many people, almost 100,000. I think 10,000 like a day I was adding this week. 10,000 subscribers a day. And now my videos are taken down, and now it's a case of, oh, right, okay. This is what happened on YouTube, isn't it? Am I going to get taken down on TikTok now? Am I going to get banned from TikTok and never get an explanation why? I never got an explanation from YouTube why they stopped showing my stuff to other people. You can't even get a response from YouTube unless you've got 100,000 subscribers. They don't even give you an email to email them. I've tried to get in contact with TikTok. It's been the same thing so far. But obviously I realise they're doing things at volume. But they clearly haven't got the formula right yet. Because if they're taking my videos down for authenticity and integrity, what hope is there? So when my ban ends tomorrow, I suppose I'll make a video explaining, okay, you need to go to and subscribe to my mailing list if you want my stuff in future, because I've seen this happen to somebody else on TikTok. It's happened to other creators where TikTok have not explained why they have banned people, but they've ended up banning them as a result of this, 5 strikes, and eventually you get banned. They never explain why they take your video down, never. They just say a sentence, it's this, and they don't say why. So it's inevitable, really, if things continue, I'm going to get banned on TikTok. So what do I do then? Well, other people on TikTok have opened another account and then amassed followers again and started all over again. If I get banned on TikTok, I've already decided I'm not doing that. I'm not starting another account and starting from scratch. One of the people I follow on TikTok is a guy called America is the Bad Place. And he got up to 90,000 subscribers as well, and then he was banned. And he complained about that on his new channel, and now his new channel has got more subscribers than the old one. But obviously they never resolved the problem, so this new channel that he's got, they could take that down at any time as well. And the reasons that they're giving for taking people down, take this channel down, is just ridiculous. It's one of the reasons why I'm definitely in the camp of having these platforms, regulated by governments to say no. You let people say whatever they want to say, but what they say crosses a line, a legal line, then we will decide whether we prosecute them. You won't decide arbitrarily what can and can't be said. You're a Silicon Valley geek. How can you possibly know the truth about what's going on in Syria, for instance? How can you possibly know the truth about what's going on in Ukraine? You can't. You're a geek who's arbitrarily deciding what's hate speech is or not. It's nonsense. So TikTok, although they're increasing their volume to 10 minutes, at the moment, I don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or not. It could be a game changer. If they extend up to 10 minutes, it puts them in competition with YouTube. And if they sort out this free speech thing and they actually sort out their appeals process, could be huge. But if they continue what they're doing at the moment, there's going to be a vast amount of people that they're going to block off from their app. But I mean, this is what happens, isn't it? This is how censorship happens. This is why I'm so anti-censorship whatsoever. Let people say whatever they want to say. Don't criminalise speech. Don't criminalise people speaking their mind. But if they speak their mind, then it's wrong to a degree where they're putting other people at risk or they're inciting violence, blah, blah, blah. Then okay. Then you've got a problem. But let people say what they've got to say. And when you're taking, when you're shutting people down, you've got to have some sort of way to explain really to that person exactly what they did wrong. Because arbitrarily just going, oh yeah, you're banned for this. How you can do that, I don't know. I got one video banned for hate speech. Hate speech. And in that video, I was as nice as you could possibly be. And I really mean that. As nice as you could possibly be in response to a Zionist. And a Zionist take on something. And even in it, I was like, with the greatest possible respect, being as nice as possible. And that got tacked down for hate speech. Why? Because a shitload of Zionists who didn't like the fact that I was talking truth reported my video. The ban was overturned. And strangely enough, now that person complains that I do that to them. It's like, grow up. Let's have an adult conversation, please. Shutting speech down is not the way to do it. It just isn't. And if you're going to shut people down from saying things, you need to explain exactly what it is that they've said that's wrong. Because then we're going to have a real conversation, aren't we? Then we can actually discuss what's true and what's not. Then we can actually have, some sort of scientific method for truth. Wouldn't that be wonderful? One of the videos they took down on TikTok, right, was the video that I released on YouTube a few days ago about Chinese propaganda is just the truth. They took that down for integrity and authenticity. The video in it, I said, Chinese propaganda is the truth. Look, 81% of US wars started by America. All these ones bombing. I was quoting Chinese government officials saying these things in public on Twitter, and they took my video down for authenticity and integrity and banned me for it. Now, like I say, they'll probably get around to the appeal and they'll probably say, okay, that was wrong. But meanwhile, I've been banned. Can't publish anything. Can't go live. So whatever money I was going to make tonight, and I did make some money from TikTok the other night on that live, I can't make. Again, hitting me in the pocket. What did they do to YouTube creators when they wanted to shut them up? Do you remember? Demonetization. The same thing's going to happen and is happening on TikTok. That, when I went live the other night, I was live on TikTok without the background like this. I was live, they couldn't see any of this. They just could see me in a green screen. I got something like 16,000 people watching at one stage. Some of them moved out and what have you. But there were hundreds of people watching me on that platform. I can't do that tonight because they banned me. Now, I understand. I'm not going to be hate towards TikTok. I get it. They're moderating content at volume. It's impossible for them to do almost. But for people like me just desperately trying to find somewhere to say something so I can reach people, it's impossible. But, you know, I know here I'm kind of like looking towards China for a chance at free speech. And that's the ridiculous situation I'm in here. I've been shut up and silenced so much. And now I feel as if it's happening again. And if it does happen again, I'm definitely not going to start again on TikTok. It can sod off. Yeah, there you go. Is it a game changer, this 10-minute thing? Could be. But they've got huge problems that they need to resolve, I think, especially before I'm going to be investing my time in doing 10-minute videos on TikTok. You know, because I could really start putting stuff together, especially with the background, etc., and information in videos. I could really start. And if I could get to a wide audience like I was doing as well, hey, that's great. Got something like 8 million views in a week. Is it any wonder my videos start getting reported? Because that's what's happened here. People have started complaining about them. Because I tell the truth. If there's anything I've said that's not true, point it out to me, please. Explain it to me. Explain what I've done wrong, and I'll correct the record. I've done it. You can go back on my videos. I've done that constantly. Wherever I found out I'm wrong about something, I've corrected the record. But I've got to be told. And if you're not telling me, that says to me that, I was right. You know? I was right, and you just don't like the fact that I'm telling the truth. Yeah, so there you go. That's the situation. It's, I'm looking to China for free speech. That's how desperate things are. Robert Hickey says, I'm unvaxxed and want to have Putin's baby. I noticed on Twitter tonight before I went live, hashtag I stand with Putin was trending, with two sides all arguing over, you know, if you say hashtag I stand with Putin, you're a traitor. It's like, grow up. Grow up. In the last few years, certainly since I've been doing this, the lies that have been spread by Western governments around the world, both in the UK and in the US and in Australia and other places, especially with matters with regards to China and Russia, are incredible. Huge amounts of lies, mass disinformation campaigns on their own people, and you're getting people, those people who have been victims of those disinformation campaigns, to argue with each other based on them both having different sets of facts, thanks to the journalists not doing their job. And people are creating division now on Twitter, which has become a cesspit. In the last few years, every single one of us, and I can guarantee you this right now, all of you right now looking at me doing this, and this guy knows a lot. Everything he says is the truth. No, it's not true. Everything I say is not true. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that. It's one of the reasons why I say up front, please, if I say something that's not true, pull me up on it, send me details of why it's not true and the proof that you've got. But I do need proof, and I need evidence, and I need to see it. I can't just have your say so. I base what I believe on what I can see, on what I have seen, and what I can deduce from that. And if you can do that, I will, by all means, change my stance on it. But I can guarantee you every single one of us believes something that is untrue in the last few years. You can guarantee it. There has been that much disinformation and misinformation spread by our own governments and our own media, if you're in the West. The outlet that I've got the most truth from, inconvenient truth, in the last few years is definitely RT, without a doubt. Propaganda is often just the truth presented in a certain way. And right now, there's a war broken out. There's been a war for years, by the way. And this has been going on for years. It's not like this war in Ukraine broke out a few weeks ago when Putin sent... No, this has been going on for quite some time. This is not the first time Putin has done this. He's done it twice before in 2008 and 2014. It's not like he hasn't been... And it's not like Putin either. It's not like it's just Putin's doing this. It's Russia. This is a red line for Russia. I'll go into that a little bit more. But we've all... a little bit more later. But we've all been lied to with regards to all sorts of major stories over the last few years. Just look at Russiagate. Just look at Russiagate. You know, Russiagate was the theory, was the conspiracy theory. And I say that, a conspiracy theory, that Donald Trump was Vladimir Putin's puppet. That was what it was. Rachel Maddow said it over and over again. The walls are closing in, they used to say on their independent media. It was a total conspiracy theory. Absolute rubbish. They've pivoted since to, it's like you make a statement and then you see where sort of like what's proven and then what's not, and then you land on the thing that's the most convenient thing, that's sort of closest to your narrative from that original massive lie that you inflicted on the world. And what they've ended up landing on was, oh yeah, okay, there was no collusion as such, which is what the Mueller report was all meant to. There was no collusion, which it didn't find any collusion, no collusion. But what it did find that was that Russia did this and therefore it's bad. It's like, okay, so Russia did that. Let's accept that. Let's accept your premise that Russia did that. Let's accept your premise that Russia did more than just took out some ads on Facebook and Google during the 2016 election. What were they? What were these ads talking about? You know, okay, let's say they did more. All right, let's accept it. Let's accept that premise. And let's accept that you've landed on Russia did something bad. All right. First of all, what about Cambridge Analytica? That wasn't Russia. That was actually the UK. It was a company in the UK with Steve Bannon in tow. And what's his name? Alan Banks, was it? You know? First of all, there's that. That wasn't Russia. That did way more, actually, if you look at it, than anything Russia did to sway the election, if you actually look at the data. So how was Donald Trump Vladimir Putin's puppet? Why did we hear that for years? Now, in America, this story has been largely discredited, even in the mainstream. Washington Post have admitted, and I've shown that article in the past, Washington Post have admitted that large chunks of their storytelling over the last few years on Russiagate needs to be reviewed, and they have done that. Remember, people at the New York Times got Pulitzer Prizes for work that they did on Russiagate. So there's massive amounts of disinformation and misinformation there. And people who read these articles that go viral and these things that get talked about non-stop on the media and in morning shows and by the BBC all around the world. It gets talked about for 4 years, but then when it was found out it was a big dud, that was talked about for half an hour and diminished. Oh yeah, he didn't find any collusion, but, you know, Russia did something bad. Well, okay. Well, let's start with that. I was already explained Cambridge Analytica did way more. And then you look at what America and the UK do to other countries around the world, and then you start thinking, okay, get the F out of here. You know? Who are we to be pointing fingers at Russia when, well, let's face it. It wasn't that long ago Russia, or America rather, it basically made sure that Yeltsin got another term. It wasn't that long ago. And we know that when it comes to interfering in elections around the world, America are the world's undisputed champions without a shadow of a doubt, and we are right up there because, let's face it, the United Kingdom is the United States' little bitch and has no sovereignty whatsoever. And if you believe we have, or you believe you're in the UK and you live in a democracy, then you need to watch some more of my videos, because we don't. So there's going to be vast amounts of people that get those stories wrong, and there's going to be parts of that story, Russiagate, that I believe that are wrong, even though I'm way more informed than an average person, who, like I say, is misinformed. It's much easier to inform somebody than it is to deprogram them. Did you know that? Much easier. I mean, religions are based on programming people like this. If you look at Scientology, this is basically what you just keep saying things over and 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 over. Even though the person knows they're not true, they'll believe it's true if you say it enough to them, because other information will fall out your head and you'll just have that in your head. This is proven ways of doing things, and propaganda is no different. This is what they do. They'll just keep saying things over and over. And then when it's wrong, they'll go, oh, we'll apologise once, and then that's it. And that's what they've done with Russiagate, essentially. They've landed on the thing that is most convenient to their story, considering where they started from, which was Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's puppet. Do I need to start talking about the Skripals? Where are they, by the way? And why did they say, yeah, I'd like to go back to Russia after Russia had poisoned it? Do I need to start talking about how often the story changed on that? When the media present information to you, they're not giving you all the facts. It's one of the reasons why I was so excited about TikTok having 10-minute videos when I first found out the news, but then that excitement was obviously waylaid when I found out that I'd got a ban. But I lost my thread then. Yeah, to give people as much information as possible is critical to having that person infer a position that is close to the truth or based on what is true. I said the other night in a live stream that if you tell people the story of Cinderella, but you don't tell the first bit up until 12 o'clock midnight, you don't tell any of that story, and you just tell the story from that point on, from after, the day after Cinderella had, run home at 12 o'clock and the coach and the glass slipper, etc. If you don't present any of that information to your audience and you just present the second half of that story, Prince Charming is a weirdo with a foot fetish. who's abusing his power, going around sniffing women's feet in every woman's feet in the end. What's he doing, the weirdo? Do you see what I mean? So there's going to be lots of stuff that we know that is correct, but because we only know 10% of the story, we have inferred the incorrect position. Do you see what I mean? And there's going to be massive amounts of that in the last few years, just because of the huge amounts of disinformation and misinformation that's out there. And the only way that we're going to get anywhere near the truth is if we open up our ears and our eyes and we start listening and looking and talking to each other. And that means people who you don't necessarily agree with, who you've got preconceived notions of. Oh, they're a right-winger. No, you need to talk to that person. That person, if they're a right-winger, is not your enemy. Being a right-winger is not a bad thing. Members of my family are right-wingers. I love them. I don't agree with them on certain things, but I love them. I don't agree with my bloody wife on everything. I'd gladly lay down my life for her. Just because you disagree with something, with people on certain issues, doesn't mean that they're your enemy. They're not. The people who are dividing you and telling you that a right-winger is your enemy, those are the people you've got to watch out for. And likewise to the people who are saying that the left are the problem. And the far left and the far right. No. Those people, ignore them. People who are not talking about NATO right now, ignore them. They're not giving you the full information that you need. We all need to understand that. We all need to understand that we've been lied to, and we all need to start listening and open up to the possibility that we've been wrong about things. And if we can do that, and we can have civil discussions with people, and we can get off Twitter and stop calling people names and start thinking that the guy down the street on Twitter is your enemy, and stop doing ridiculous stuff like putting your Ukrainian flag in your... If we can do that, and we can stop thinking that putting a Ukrainian flag in your bio means you're an expert on foreign policy. If we can do that, then we might have a chance at getting through this. But if not, we're going to have a real problem, because right now there's people talking about nuclear missiles. And the media are not helping. Not if your goal is détente. So, yeah, that's something I really wanted to talk about. None of us know everything. None of us. Every single one of us needs to know that the more we know, the less we know, really. The more we know, the more we should understand, holy shit, I know nothing. And be open to listening to other people and stop thinking that there's some white supremacist just because they think defund the police is a bad slogan. Do you know what I mean? If somebody's saying, oh, defund the police, no, I don't agree with that. Oh, you're a crazy right-winger. What the hell what are you doing? How is that going to help anything? I happen to agree defund the police was a bad slogan. However, what slogan would you want? It's better than nothing. You know, I reform the police, maybe. You know, renew the police. All of these things are totally reform the police. It's just not as catchy, you know. Defund the police at least got people talking, I suppose. But somebody who doesn't agree that somebody who says defund the police is a bad thing, that doesn't mean they're your enemy. Doesn't mean they're a right winger immediately. I actually agree with them. There's no way anybody could call me a right winger if they actually know my positions on things. Okay, one of the other things I want to talk about tonight is I was going to go into depth on this. In fact, I've been live for over an hour already, haven't I? I'm not going to have time to talk about this. I really wanted to talk about this quickly, but I'm not going to have time to talk about it. I'll quickly talk about it. There's something dodgy with this. We need to start looking at this. Because this is some facts and figures from NATO defense, from NATO spending, and this is defense spending in NATO countries, and how much we give towards NATO. And I just want to... It's an alliance between 30 people, 30 countries. This is the amount, look, people are spending. This is how much these countries spend on defense. But apart from defence spending, running a transcontinental political alliance costs around $3 billion annually. $3 billion? That's 3,000 million. Split between 30 countries? That's 100 million just for paperwork a year. Are you kidding me? 100 million? Somebody tell Boris he'll put that on the side of a bus. Anyway, I was going to go in depth on that tonight, but I'm not going to. A lot of people are talking about it now, thankfully. I have talked about it a lot over the last few days. Nobody in the mainstream is talking about it, and you certainly are not going to hear anybody in the Labour Party talking about it, considering what Keir Starmer's done. Starmer's policy is, if a Labour MP echoed anything that Professor Mearsheimer said, anything historically, and I'll show you a couple of his videos coming up, they'll be booted out of the Labour Party. He'll take the whip from them. But if you are in the Labour Party at this point, I would like to ask you why. I mean, why are you in the Labour Party? I just want to, like I say, I don't want to go too in depth on this tonight. I was going to go heavily in depth on that, and I had a whole thing, but I'll do that another time. But there are some points on NATO I want to make while I'm live. This is by a guy called Arnold Bertrand. Most fascinating thing about the Ukraine war is the sheer number of top strategic thinkers who warned for years that it was coming if we continued down the same path. It's sort of the reason why I want to talk about this is because it sort of fits in with what I'm saying to you about the media. They're only presenting one set of facts. For instance, with regards to NATO and NATO's expansion, they will only, and they have historically, only presented you the side of things from the neocons and the neoliberals historically. People like Mearsheimer, I found out last night, I think it was Max Blumenthal, he ended up getting smeared as an anti-Semite. I know. It's like you're diminishing the word, aren't you? It's got to the stage now. If Jeremy Corbyn's an anti-Semite, then the word has lost all power. So he says that the first one is George Kennan, arguably America's greatest ever foreign policy strategist, the architect of the US Cold War strategy. As soon as 1998, he warned that NATO expansion was a tragic mistake that ought to ultimately provoke a bad reaction from Russia. He said this. I'll read this out for you because it's obviously a little bit difficult for you to see there. On May the 2nd, 1998, immediately after the Senate ratified NATO expansion, I called George Kennan the architect of America's successful containment of the Soviet Union. Having joined the State Department in 1926 and served as the US ambassador to Moscow in 1952, Kennan was arguably America's greatest expert on Russia. Though 94 at the time and frail of voice, he was sharp of mind when I asked for his opinion of NATO expansion. I am going to share Kennan's whole answer. Quote, I think it is the beginning of a new Cold War. I think the Russians will gradually react quite adversely and it will affect their policies. I think it is a tragic mistake. There was no reason for this whatsoever. No one was threatening anybody else. This expansion would make the founding fathers of his country turn over in their graves. Exactly. This is unconstitutional, this is. This is something Tulsi Gabbard points to all the time. What America are doing here with NATO, with pushing NATO, because let's face it, America are 66% of the funding of NATO, I think 2/3. It's unconstitutional. It's illegal according to their own founding fathers' doctrine. We have signed up to protect a whole series of countries, even though we have neither the resources nor the intention to do so in any serious way. Yeah, this $811 billion that they spend on defence for the NDAA, the National Defence Authorisation Act, it's not defence. The vast amount of that goes to overseas bases abroad to, quote, protect American interests or NATO interests. They don't give their own people healthcare, though. Make their own people pay twice as much for healthcare as every other country in the world, with probably half the outcomes, I think, maybe. I think they're ranked 12th or something like that in the world, and pay twice as much as everybody. Over half of all discretionary spending in the United States goes on the military. And that money doesn't include, by the way, you know, the housing of the nuclear weapons and bases at home, or veterinary veterans affairs. Okay. I'll start that last paragraph again. He said this: we have signed up to protect a whole series of countries, even though we have neither the resources or the intention to do so in any serious way. NATO expansion was simply a light-hearted action by a Senate that has no real interest in foreign affairs. What bothers me is how superficial and ill-informed the whole Senate debate was. I was particularly bothered by the references to Russia as a country dying to attack Western Europe. This is going back to 1998. So this has been coming a long time. Don't people understand? He said our differences in the Cold War were with the Soviet communist regime. Russia's not communist. Even though half of Americans, I think I saw in a poll, said so. Which does make me wonder there what sort of people answer polls. And now we are turning our backs on the very people who mounted the greatest bloodless revolution in history to remove that Soviet regime, and Russia's democracy is as far advanced, if not farther, as any of these countries we've just signed up to defend from Russia. Of course, there is going to be a bad reaction from Russia. And then the NATO expanders will say that we always told you that is how Russians are, but this is just wrong. What the excuse is, isn't it? This is just what Russia is. It's just what they do. So that's 1998. Henry Kissinger, of all people, is on the right side of this. Even Henry Kissinger. I'm no fan of Henry Kissinger, Arnold said, but I have to admit he does have a very realistic understanding of world dynamics. This article he wrote in 2014 about Ukraine, he said to settle the Ukraine crisis at the end. He was talking about détente. He was talking about neutralising Ukraine, even back then. I can't remember which tab have I got open now. Okay, that one. That's wrong. Back to it. This is NATO that they won't talk about in the media. They say NATO's got nothing to do with Ukraine; it's a European thing. So this is John Mearsheimer, who I spoke about. This is a speech that has been viral over the last week. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it again. So I'm going to play it for you here. 2015. Like I say, this is the guy who ended up getting a smear as an anti-Semite.
But I actually think that what's going on here is that the West is leading Ukraine down the primrose path. And the end result is that Ukraine is going to get wrecked. And I believe that the policy that I'm advocating, which is neutralizing Ukraine and then building it up economically and getting it out of the competition between Russia on one side and NATO on the other side, is the best thing that could happen to the Ukrainians. What we're doing is encouraging the Ukrainians to play tough with the Russians. We're encouraging the Ukrainians to think that they will ultimately become part of the West, because we will ultimately defeat Putin and we will ultimately get our way. Time is on our side. And of course, the Ukrainians are playing along with this. And the Ukrainians are almost completely unwilling to compromise with the Russians and instead want to pursue a hardline policy. Well, as I said to you before, if they do that, the end result is that their country is going to be wrecked. And what we're doing is, in effect, encouraging that outcome. I think it would make much more sense for us to work to create a neutral Ukraine. It would be in our interest to bury this crisis as quickly as possible. It certainly would be in Russia's interest to do so. And most importantly, it would be in Ukraine's interest to put an end to the crisis. Thank you.
So that was 2015. You know, these people, like I say, they got smeared. You know, he got smeared, the other guy died off. You know, they've been ignored. Meanwhile, the people who have been wrong about this all along, like Michael McFaul, they're the ones who are being listened to again now, still. These are people who are unelected in America. They're not elected, but they're, you know, basically deciding NATO policy. Warhawks in Washington. This is Jack F. Matlock, US ambassador to the Soviet Union from 87 to 91, warning in 97 that NATO expansion was the most profound strategic blunder, encouraging a chain of events that could produce the most serious security threat since the Soviet Union collapsed. Here is Clinton's Defense Secretary William Perry explaining in his memoir that to him, NATO enlargement is the cause of, quote, the rupture in relations with Russia. And then in 1996 he was so opposed to it that, quote, in the strength of any of my conviction, I considered resigning. You need to understand here, this is not a red line just for Putin. This stuff going on in Ukraine, this NATO expansion as well, and, you know, basically the United States puppet governments. I've covered the Victoria Nuland leaks and the amount that was going into Ukraine from American NGOs, etc. This is a red line not just for Putin, but for Russia. Remember, Putin is not a dictator, as you may hear, although, you know, he's still got a government that he has to answer to and people that he has to answer to. And in Russia, they support this invasion. I think 70-something% I heard. A lot of people in eastern Ukraine are ethnic Russians. They speak Russian as well. This is not just Putin. I keep hearing on Twitter as well, I saw Putin's crazy. That was trending. I stand with Putin, look. Nutters. With everybody, with two sides going, I stand with Putin, saying, oh, you're a traitor. This is what's happening on Twitter. This is Noam Chomsky in 2015 saying that the idea of Ukraine might join a Western military alliance would be quite unacceptable to any Russian leader. It's not just Putin. And that Ukraine's desire to join NATO is not protecting Ukraine, it's threatening Ukraine with a major war. I'll play this.
The idea that Ukraine might join a Western military alliance would be quite unacceptable to any Russian leader. This goes back to 1990, when the Soviet Union collapsed. There was a question as to what would happen with NATO. Gorbachev agreed to allow Germany to be unified and to join NATO. It's a pretty remarkable concession, with a quid pro quo that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east. That was the phrase that was used.
So Russia has been provoked
Well, what happened? NATO instantly moved to East Germany. Then Clinton came along, expanded NATO right to the borders of Russia. Now there are the new Ukrainian government, the government after the overthrow of the preceding one, the parliament voted, I think 300 to 8 or something like that, to move to join NATO.
Which you can understand why they would want to join NATO. You can see why Petro Poroshenko's government would probably see that it's protecting his country.
No, it's not protect. Crimea was taken away after the overthrow of the government, right? And he's not protecting Ukraine, is threatening Ukraine with major war. That's not protection. The point is, this is a serious strategic threat to Russia, which any Russian leader would have to react to. That's well understood.
Now, how often do you hear that in, you know, the main areas that from the people who have got the ears of millions in this country? You know? Here's Stephen Cohen, famed scholar of Russian studies, warning in 2014 that if we move NATO forces towards Russian borders, it's obviously going to militarize the situation and Russia will not back off. This is essential.
If we move the forces, NATO forces, including American troops, toward Russia's borders, where will we be then? I mean, it's obviously going to militarize the situation and therefore raise the danger of war. And I think it's important to emphasize, though I regret saying this, Russia will not back off. This is existential. Too much has happened. Putin, and it's not just Putin. We seem to think Putin runs the whole of the universe. He has a political class. That political class has opinions. Public support is running overwhelmingly in favor of Russian policy. Putin will compromise at these negotiations, but he will not back off if confronted militarily. He will. You
know, the people have been warning this is going to happen for a long time, and these people get cast to the outskirts. This is famous Russian-American journalist Vladimir Pozner in 2018. He says NATO expansion in Ukraine is unacceptable to the Russian, not to Putin, to the Russian. And there has to be a compromise where Ukraine guaranteed will not become a member of NATO. I personally don't think there's any need for it.
Why did I ask for a map of the United States and Mexico? Well, the United States has a pretty large border with Mexico. Now imagine that you have a revolution in Mexico. That's not that hard to imagine. And imagine that the government that comes to power is not a big fan of the United States of America. And I think that too is not difficult to imagine. But since it's a little bit afraid of Big Brother, it asks the Russians to send over 3 or 4 or 5 divisions to be placed on the U.S.-Mexican border. Think the U.S. would accept that? So why would the Russians accept this? That's what it's really all about. Does there have to be a compromise? In my opinion, yes. And the compromise has to be that Ukraine, guaranteed, will not become a member of NATO.
There are so many instances of this that are just not being heard. Right before war broke out, this is famous economist Jeffrey Sachs writing in a column in the Financial Times warning that, quote, NATO management is utterly misguided and risky. True friends of Ukraine and of global peace should be calling for a US and NATO compromise with Russia. There are other instances as well to this. It's an excellent thread this was, and other people started chiming in with other examples of people who were warning that this was going to happen, and, you know, ex-officials and prominent officials who were warning that it was going to happen and were ignored or shunned to the outskirts. Or, you know, in the case of Mearsheimer, ended up getting a smear that he was an anti-Semite. But if you echo any of those thoughts, any of them, in the Labour Party, you get booted out. Why is that? Why is that? We can clearly see here, you know, there's another story to be told than what we've been told, isn't there? But then, you know, if you are in the Labour Party, still, after everything that's happened, I'd like to ask you why. Because the last I checked, they were accepting members of the Conservative Party and booting out Jeremy Corbyn and Chris Williamson. You know, what do you call a Labour Party that accepts members of the Conservatives but boots out Jeremy Corbyn and people like him, such as Chris Williamson? What do you call that? What do you call a Labour Party that does that? Well, you call it the Tory Party, don't you? And both of them, the Labour Party and Conservatives right now, are in lockstep over Ukraine, and that should worry every single damn one of us watching this in the UK, because when Keir Starmer's Labour, this Labour Party, after booting out Corbyn and Williamson and all the voices of reason and sanity, and leaving in all the voices that are pro-Israel and pro-war and pro-NATO, when they're agreeing with the Tories, then it's time to worry. Because we might very well get dragged into this. There are calls right now by idiots in the media for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. I saw this earlier. Find it. Because I couldn't quite believe that people were doing that. I couldn't quite believe that people were calling for a no-fly zone over Ukraine. A NATO no-fly zone. It was actually good to hear this, because I won't give you the reaction of, I won't give you my reaction, but I can give you the reaction that the guy from the armed forces over here gave. But I can't find it now. Where the bloody hell? Why can't I find that? But he pretty much laid it out, and that a no-fly zone over Ukraine would quickly escalate into a major war in Europe. And what we need right now is de-escalation. We need détente. We need everybody talking. We need a ceasefire. We need sensible people. We don't need people raising the rhetoric and starting talking about, this is what would happen if a nuclear bomb landed on London. This is what would happen. We don't need that. We don't need you scaring the shit out of everybody. If a nuclear bomb goes off anywhere near Russia or it's over. They're doing this. They're in lockstep at the moment. The Tories and Labour are over this issue, and that should scare everybody. Because as Carlin said, that when political parties make a bipartisan effort, that means a larger than unusual amount of subterfuge and nastiness is about to be inflicted on the nation, you know? And right now they're doing this as they're massively censoring independent media and any media that is thought of as spreading Putin propaganda. That's what they say, and that's all. If you're on Twitter saying, you're spreading Putin's propaganda, or you're a Putin puppet, or you're a Putin bot, you need to shut the hell up. Seriously, please. And just start listening to people, because What does that mean, spreading Putin propaganda? I tell you what that means. It means telling a truth that you don't like. That's what it means. That's all it means. Telling the truth that you don't like. Because if you think if you want to see any truthful coverage by a corporate or state media outlet about Syria, don't go to the BBC. You're going to get a pack of lies. Go to RT, especially when it comes to Douma or Aleppo or anything like that. RT, you'll get a closer version of the truth from them than you will with us. Because we're the ones who were funding the mercenaries and the bad guys in Syria and stoking this war up. If you don't believe me, go to Wikipedia, type in Operation Timber Sycamore. It all started there. So they're censoring all these outlets at the same time as they're gearing up for this war? Why? Ukraine isn't even a NATO country yet. So why are you desperate to defend it? After pretty much ensuring that this situation was going to happen for over a decade. And shutting anybody up that questions it. That sounds really worrying to me. And another thing that sounds really worrying to me is this. And I've got to talk about this because, as I said, RT have been blocked. They haven't been banned on Twitter. They've just been blocked in the UK. And it's wrong. RT America, same thing has happened. Okay? RT journalists in the US are just those who were booted from corporate media for doing their jobs too well and holding power to account. They're not censoring RT for propaganda or lies. You need to understand that in the UK and the US. They're censoring RT's journalists for telling inconvenient truths. Subscribe to them all. RT in America is the only place that Chris Hedges, the only TV platform that will give Chris Hedges a voice. You're going to call Chris Hedges a propagandist for Putin? He's one of the best journalists there is and has been ever. The reason I say this is because this is from my friend Naila. One of her friends who works at RT in New York told her that RT America went dark today and will be dark all week, perhaps permanently. And he also said that his colleagues have been receiving death threats. This is as a result of this censorship from the Western powers, because it's not coming from YouTube, it's coming from Western powers. As I pointed out in the live stream I did the other night, you know, who are we to be pointing fingers at Russia? And who are we to be banning Russia from the World Cup? You know, Saudi Arabia weren't banned when they chopped up Khashoggi. We weren't banned when we invaded Iraq or Afghanistan. Invading countries that didn't attack us. Ended up with millions of people died as a result of our aggression around the world. 17 million displaced as a result of NATO wars. We faced no sanction whatsoever. Yet Russia stepped a foot out of line, and all of a sudden they can't go to the World Cup and they're disconnected from the world financial system. And all their journalists, no, you can't talk. Naila said, I cannot stress how incredibly effed up this is. This won't stop at RT. Of course it won't. You people cheering this on, it's not going to stop there. You people cheered on Alex Jones a few years ago when he was chucked off YouTube. We told you it wouldn't stop there, and it didn't. Before you knew it, they were throwing off pro-Palestinians, they were throwing off pro-Black Lives Matter. We told you. It's not, and it won't stop at RT either. They will go for all who are vocal against the establishment. If you're not vocal against the establishment, you've You'll get a job at The Guardian, no problem, especially if you'll push their stuff, and especially if you'll attack journalists who are talking about Assange truthfully and Ukraine too truthfully. You know who I'm talking about. You're meant to be the fourth estate. You're meant to be the terriers who are chomping at their ankles after the truth on behalf of the public. And instead, what do they do over at The Guardian? What do they do? They're silent on the matters that the powerful, that's important, that the powerful are doing, that should be told to a nation, i.e., torturing a journalist for telling the truth. They're already doing it, says Naylor, with the censorship and attacks that have gone into overdrive on social media this week. There are repercussions to this. When you've got this amount of rhetoric, this divisive rhetoric that is being blurted out right now, there's going to be people who are affected by it. Here's one. Here's Rachel Blevins from RT in America. She's great, is Rachel Blevins. She really is. And not only is she great, she's got better over the last few years. If you have been following her for the last few years, she was always good, but she's got better, And she says this, in the last 24 hours, I've been bombarded with a constant influx of hateful messages and death threats by people who have taken it upon themselves to become offended by a network I've worked for over 3 years. That hate has spread to every profile I'll have and every platform. Look, this is her personal Twitter account, and Twitter label her Russia's state-affiliated media. There are repercussions for these actions, this censorship that's going on right now. She says this Twitter account is my personal profile, and I have spent the last decade working tirelessly to build. When I received the Russia state-affiliated media label, I immediately tweeted calling for it to be removed, and I stand by that. I do not speak for Russia or Russian media. I have done work for RT in the past. Does that mean I'm an agent of Putin's propaganda network if I continue to do stuff for them? She says this hours later, I deleted the tweet after I received such an overwhelming number of messages and comments from people who know nothing about me, yet felt the need to go out of their way and spread hatred to an extent that they threatened my life and my safety. Congratulations. Well done. All those people with a platform spreading, anti-Russian stuff and anti-stuff about RT right now. Well done. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, well, they've banned RT, and they went, good. I went, what? Good. I said, well, why is that good? Why is it bad for... Well, bloody Russia started a war, didn't they? Like, well, we started plenty of wars, but we weren't banned in Russia. The BBC wasn't banned in Russia. I've showed plenty of instances of in the past few years of RT telling the truth and our media spinning a load of bollocks. But we weren't sanctioned. When we invaded Afghanistan and Iraq on lies, did anything happen to our media outlets at all? Were anybody who spun those lies that cost all those lives, did they face any repercussions at all? Did they face any punishment? No! They got promoted. They're still in those positions now. In fact, they're in even higher positions of power. Meanwhile, the person in the media who told the truth the most and held the power to account the most and was the most like the Fourth Estate and published millions of documents, over 1 million a year for 15 years, and had a 100% accuracy rate, well, he's thrown in prison and his voice silenced. Go back, we fucked up, obviously. We need to go back. This is not good. This censorship is not good. We need talking. The more we go down this route, the more we're going to divide people. And the more likely it is that we're not going to get out of this. Russia are not kidding here. And America know it. They know. America knows Russia's not kidding, and they're doing it anyway. NATO knows Russia's not kidding about this, and they're doing it anyway. What does that tell you? We've got all these problems at home. Nobody's talking about Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell now, are they? Eh? Have a slip on my coffee. Hi, everybody. Oh, is that all the people that are watching? Is that it? Oh, okay. My machine said there was eight people watching. I was like, what? 8? Okay, that's obviously I'm not right. All right. Yeah, I can see you're there. Okay. So on the subject of people being censored. Oh, by the way, this is something else. There's something else that isn't talked about with regards to NATO and with regards to Ukraine. Mearsheimer, who I mentioned earlier, who did that brilliant speech, he's done another one as well. I should share. And he said trouble began in April 2008. Do you remember me saying that? It's worth reading this US cable from June 2008. So this is 2008. Right? Obama's been in power 6 months. Right? Is that right? 2008? No, he's not even in power yet, is he? So this was Bush. Because Obama was elected in November 2008, got in 2009. I think that's correct. So this was Bush. This is a cable from WikiLeaks. Programs in local press centres. Disposition of funds is spelled out in detail. Full list to be forwarded by email with key items including. Look at this. It's the amount of money going into Ukraine in 2008. They knew that they were pushing Russia into this. And they did it anyway. You have to ask whether it's on purpose. NATO pamphlets, $1.2 million in NATO pamphlets. TV debates, $500,000. Monthly TV programme, $350,000. Regional conferences, $300,000. NATO HQ visits for journalists, NGO reps, etc. $150,000. One visit per blast per year. NATO centres at universities, $175,000. $100,000 for polling. So this is all. You can see what they're doing here. They're spreading the pro-NATO propaganda. They talk about blocking RT's propaganda in the UK. Well, here is NATO blatantly, as far back as 2008, pushing their propaganda in Ukraine absolutely without question at all. Bragging about it, saying, Victoria Nuland said, we invested $5 billion in Ukraine before 2014. Well, here is where it's going. TV stations, newspapers, universities, conferences. Meanwhile, pro-Russian TV stations in the last few years were taken off air by the current president, I think as a gift for Biden, they said. Yet we're meant to be standing up for this democracy? This is a failed state we're talking about here. Ukraine's a failed state. We need to lift Ukraine up, not be talking about destroying it. All of this, as Screw Google said there, has just said, no accountability whatsoever for any of this. No government oversight at all in the US. None. This is all done, you know. This is NATO. This is NATO money. Is this part of that, 100 million or so that we're spending towards NATO? It would go on the side of a bus well, that would, wouldn't it? 100 million for the NHS a year. They're not telling you the truth in legacy media. And they're doing it on purpose. They're purposefully keeping you in the dark and feeding you on bullshit. They're treating you like mushrooms. They will give you... It's not like they're lying to you overtly, but they'll tell you 30% of the story. And they'll tell you the 30% that makes them and their side look, and the narrative they're trying to spin, it'll back that up. Meanwhile, they'll censor RT journalists, so the other side, you don't get to hear that. That sounds like a primer for war to me. That sounds like they're priming for war. And it sounds very much to me like it was all by design. And what you and I want in the US and the UK and Europe and Ukraine and Russia for that. What you want, what we want, doesn't matter one bit. All this scream about having to save a democracy, we haven't even got a democracy ourselves. Let alone Ukraine. Ukraine is a failed state. We are oligarchies at best. We need to back off from Ukraine. We need to put a ring around it. We need to isolate it. We need to say, okay, let's have some conversations about this. By the way, Ukraine's got a lot of gas. A lot of gas. And a lot of gas was found just off the coast of Crimea in 2012. And also a lot of gas was found in the east and west of Ukraine as well. NATO, there's a speech, I must show it in a live stream soon, but I couldn't find it earlier. It was Chomsky, again, before Chomsky, started talking nonsense years ago. He's talking about how NATO, it sort of morphed from a anti-communist to keep communism down from 1990 afterwards. There's no need for NATO afterwards, but it's sort of morphed into something to control the global fossil fuel supply. And there's a bloody good argument you can make for that. I'll make that in another video. Like I say, I didn't want to go in too much into it tonight, but I've ended up talking about it for 40 fucking minutes. This is something else I missed earlier when I was talking about Ukraine and talking about people who, we need to stop this divisive nonsense. Look at this. This is Off Guardian. If you don't follow them on Twitter, you should do. They're great. He said this: people don't stand with Ukraine, because people are saying I stand with Ukraine, or any national identity, until you at least understand what that means. Okay? Now, if you don't understand what that means, I stand with Ukraine, I suggest you first, before you say that at all, you go to YouTube, you type in Ukraine on Fire, Oliver Stone, and you watch that documentary. Then go to Twitter and type I stand with Ukraine. But he's getting at that here, Off Guardian is. Until you at least understand what that means. Don't wear the yellow and blue flag, or any flag for that matter, until you know what's being done in its name. He's talking about, the Azov battalion, neo-Nazis in Ukraine. He's talking about them being armed. He's talking about all the damage and all the dealings that they had, and these far-right groups that were propped up in the coup of 2013, 2014. He's talking about how they're the people who are influencing this. They're the people who are making sure that peace isn't brought to Ukraine. They're the people who are ensuring that the Minsk agreements weren't adhered to, assuring that there was always going to be conflict in the east of Ukraine, ensuring, pushing people towards the west. This is what he's talking about. He's saying, come on, let's have a conversation. Let's understand things. And this is the response he gets. Repulsive Russian shill. And this is happening all the time. And people with the Ukrainian flag there. He's being as nice as he possibly can. And he says, apparently urging people not to take sides without understanding what they stand for or what's at stake makes us a Russian shill. Decent people like John don't need to know what's really going on. They tweet from the hip and ask questions later. Ask questions never, sorry. Yeah, great response, mate. We really need to stop this. And we really need to stop this too. I don't know why really they even have written this headline. Calls for supermarkets to change spelling of chicken Kiev in solidarity with Ukraine. Okay, where are these calls coming from? Eh? They've got Sainsbury's and Tesco there. Look at that. Supermarkets are under increasing pressure to change the name of the popular dish. Where are they under pressure from? Look, there are growing calls for supermarkets and brands to drop the Soviet spelling of their chicken Kievs and instead call them chicken Kievs. Some brands have already made the change, with Irish food producer Finnebrog. There's 70 people in the chat. How many people have ever heard of Irish food producer Finnebrog here? Hands up. Hands up. Hands up where, if you think Irish food producer Finnebrog here really care about the plight of Ukrainian people, or they looked at this as a marketing opportunity. Some brands have already made the change, with Irish food producer Finnebrog, owner of the Better Naked brand, never heard of it, announcing the altered spelling in solidarity with the Ukrainian people. So in other words, it's a marketing ploy. This is the same as America saying freedom fries instead of French fries when they were pissed off at the French back in the 2000s, over 9/11 I think it was. The brand also announced that half the profits from the product would go towards the humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. And I dare say that their board have calculated that their profits will quadruple, therefore they'll be able to give half of them away, doubling their profits, or something like that. We have renamed our plant-based chicken Kiev to chicken Kiev in solidarity with the Ukrainian people. We are donating. 30% of Ukraine speak Russian. 30% of them speak Russian. We have renamed. Okay, we are donating 50% of the profits. They've said that. Other brands have followed suit. Listen to this. Dublin-based Fallon and Byrne. Never heard of them. London's Il Portico and Pinot. Never heard of them. Now there are calls for other brands and restaurants, including major supermarkets, to change its spelling too. Who is calling for that? Well, according to this from LBC, one Twitter user. I still think Marks & Spencer, said one Twitter user, is missing a real trick in not renaming its iconic Chicken Kiev, a dish that launched the entire ready meal industry, as Chicken Kiev and donating profits to United Red Cross or similar. Yeah, they're missing a trick. They're missing a marketing opportunity, in other words. And LBC have written an article on this. I'm sure it's very popular. It caught my eye because of the propaganda it's spewing. They could have written the article saying, yeah, these bunch of assholes are actually jumping on this, pretending to be in solidarity with the Ukrainian people to try and sell more chicken Kievs. They could have written that article, but no, they went along with it because they know that people are going to, oh, look at that, chicken Kiev. It's one of those stories, isn't it? That it'll be in the Metro. You can guarantee this is going to be in the Metro. They're going to be reading this on the number 9 in the morning. I can guarantee you it. LBC has approached all the major supermarkets for a comment. What did all the supermarkets say? Well, for many, changing the spelling of the word is seen as a small and peaceful way to show solidarity with the people of Ukraine. For many, not many supermarkets though, no. Did the supermarkets say, oh, stop it, you twat? For many, changing the spelling of the word is seen as a small and peaceful way to show solidarity for the people of Ukraine. For many, like me, it's a scrupulous marketing ploy to try and make more money. The capital city was known as Kiev when the country was under Soviet rule, but the Ukrainian spelling is Kyiv. Now that the sovereignty of the country is under threat. We don't have sovereignty in the UK. Ukraine is a failed state. What are you talking about? Sovereignty and democracy. The Ukrainian spelling has been more widely adopted with many news, blah, 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 blah. You can guarantee that is going to be on the seat next to you on the bus in the morning when you're on the way to work. I need to talk about somebody famous. Well, I need to talk about, it's not somebody famous, but the other night in America, old President Biden and Kinky. Hi Kinky, I hope you heard me earlier. Thank you very much for the donation you sent the other night. I do appreciate that. I didn't get round to start thanking you on the live stream the other night. I noticed it after I logged off, but thank you. And she says US is a failed state too, and I completely agree with that. It's certainly not following its constitution, that's for sure. If you're in America, you should be demanding answers about why your constitution is being flagrantly abused and ignored by a government that is out of control and not working in your interest whatsoever. When France said they would neither support nor participate in the invasion of Iraq, they wanted to change French fries to freedom fries. True story. Thought that. Dealt calm. I thought it was something to do with 9/11. Yeah, that Chicken Kiev, very similar story, isn't it? Over in America, there was the State of the Union address. Now, this is something that the president gives every year, although one year I think it was cancelled or put back, wasn't it, because of COVID. But anyway, this is something that happens every year. I've watched one. I think I watched Trump's first one, and I got the gist of what they're all the same. They are nonsense, no matter who stands up. They get an applause every sentence they say. It's if you say a word right, you get a round of applause from both sides. It's just theatre. It really is. Biden got up, and I suppose I should show this just in case you haven't seen it, because I don't want to take a pop at Biden for his I don't want to take a pop at Biden. I really don't. And I don't want to draw too many conclusions from this. I'll leave that for you to infer.
It's going to take time. So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people. To our fellow Ukrainian Americans who forged the deep bond that connects our two nations, we stand with you. We stand with you. Putin may circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people. He'll never extinguish their love
And
of
they
freedom.
applauded it.
And he
They
will
applauded
never weaken the resolve of the free world.
Listen again.
Circle Kyiv with tanks, but he'll never gain the hearts and souls of the Iranian people.
Iranian people. And then the people from both sides applauded it. It's a nonsense. It's like that. It's theatre. So Biden's made a big boo-boo there, and people have just applauded him anyway. I think he's right, though. You know? Well, no, is he? The Iranian people, I don't know, Putin might have won the hearts and minds of the Iranian people. He stuck up for Syria, didn't he? So maybe he has. Maybe he has won the hearts and minds of the Iranian people. I don't think he's done it by encircling Kiev, but... So, you know, that happened. But I'm not going to concentrate on that. I'm going to concentrate on something else that happened. Because there was a bit of, well... bit of a problem, shall we say, with some heckling. Now, heckling has happened before the State of the Union speech, right? You may remember Trump, a couple of years ago, did a speech and Nancy Pelosi ripped up his speech in front of him. Do you remember? And there were other times, I think, Obama had somebody call him a liar. He said, "You lie." There was another instance with Bush as well. There was another instance I seem to remember. There was an instance with Bush being heckled at the State of the Union speech. So this happens quite often, you know. It's not like this is the first time it's happened. But, well, this happened. And I'm going to show you a video from The View in America. And the reason I want to show you the video on The View is because I want to talk about one of the people on the panel, which is Whoopi Goldberg. Now, The View, for those people that don't know, is kind of like the American version of Loose Women. But way worse. And if you don't believe that,
I would
then
say
it's way
that
worse.
the State of the Union is kind of, it was typical, like what we always said we wanted to see again.
No,
like
I'm actually going to just forward it to after she speaks, because she's actually quite reasonable. So I'm going to fast forward through that reasonable bit.
out right in the middle. That's where my reaction.
Because what has happened is Biden got heckled by two Republicans. I think they were Republicans. I think that, yeah, I'm sure they were Republicans. Let me just get you to the video. Sorry, I couldn't load these in at the beginning because otherwise it would have crashed my computer. So I apologise for this. But I want to show you what was said.
Many of you have been there. I've been in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan over 40 times. These burn pits that incinerate waste, the waste of war, medical and hazardous material, jet fuel, and so much more. And they come home, many of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world. Never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know.
She said 13 of them. I don't know whether you heard there. I'll try and turn it up, but she said 13 of them, referencing the 13 servicemen who were killed in the withdrawal of Afghanistan. I'll play it again, listen.
I know.
Did you hear that? 13 of them.
One of those soldiers was my son, Major Bo Biden.
Now, I don't know why you mentioned Bo there, because I don't think Bo was blown up in Afghanistan. You know, But he does he does rely on his son dying, you know, the story of his son dying a lot to punctuate his anecdotes, etc. But you can see there that, you know, he was heckled. So this is the reaction to that heckle from the View panelists, you know, the US's version of our loose women.
It's like I felt like saying, listen, Lauren, you're in the United States Congress. You're not doing a midnight set of chuckles.
Yeah. I think we have a...
You're in the Senate, not chuckles. Okay.
We have a clip for those that missed it, right? What she
So
Many
here's
of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world. Never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know. 13. One of those soldiers was my son, Major Bo Biden.
Lindsay.
So, I think somebody's just said in the chat, C. Lou said he uses every personal tragedy like a tool for his personal gain. I mean, politicians do that though, don't they? It's a personal tragedy, obviously his son died, but I mean, anybody listening to that would think that his son died in Afghanistan, in the withdrawal of Afghanistan, wouldn't they? And although Lauren Boebert has brought up those 13 people there, I'm referencing, it's the 13 people in Afghanistan, the 13 US servicemen who were killed in that one friendly fire strike in Afghanistan. Didn't mention the 170 people, Afghans, that were killed in that. Let me just play this, though, from The View, just to show you why I've got an issue with it. Because this is the sort of thing that is played on a daytime programme in the US. They'll take Chris Hedges off the air. But this, they'll leave on. Now, I'm not saying that this should be taken off too. I'm just saying, listen, it's very interesting, isn't it? Who they would like you, and they're okay with you listening to, and who they don't want you to listen to.
Graham, did he look like he was
He told her to
responding?
be quiet, I
Yeah.
believe. He made a shushing noise. But she doubled down on Twitter saying she couldn't stay silent about this. And I have to say, you know, you're probably about 35 years old, and maybe you don't understand that a whole lot of folks over the last 7 or 8 years have been sent to their death for no good reason. Soldiers know what's coming. They don't want to die.
No.
And what you should do is you should have let him say what he had to say. And if you were going to yell something out, just hold off. Hold off. But don't do it there, because we're all trying to hear it. And now we're talking about you instead of, you know, what he had to say. I just thought,
remember when
her age, I felt her age did it.
Was to be talked about. I think that was probably
she's a clout
goal.
chaser, and she's raised money.
Look, it's theater. Does everyone remember the Lego movie and the song "Everything Is Awesome"? You remember that? And like, everything's political. It just is. I mean, you have to look at like sort of the political reason she did that, and I think it was. You know, she wanted to stand out. She wanted to be viral
and decorum, and there has to be some sort of
I'm not
decorum
forgiving
in
it.
our
I'm not
politics.
forgiving it. I'm not forgiving it, Sonny. I think it was totally inappropriate.
Inappropriate.
It was
And Joe
inappropriate.
Wilson,
I don't think you
who
can
yelled
explain
out,
it away.
remember when Obama was
Liar,
president,
yes.
he yelled out,
Yeah,
lie,
it was
lie.
wrong also.
He apologized to Obama. Let's see if Lauren apologizes
Well, and maybe
to the
Marjorie
president.
Taylor Greene should spend less time making so much noise at a State of the Union. You know, less time doing that
Look
than
at them.
speaking
They
at
look like
white
they're at a
nationalist
basketball game.
events.
Exactly.
That's what she
let me
just did.
point something else out. In 2020, she opposed a bill to fund the military because she didn't like Democratic politics. Babe.
Who's that, Marjorie or Lauren?
This is Lauren.
Oh, Lauren Boebert.
Now, you know, don't talk about the military unless you really want to talk about the military. You know, you can't do what they do. That's why we revere them, because they do the stuff we can't do. And the minute you poop on them like the last guy did, talking about those Gold Star families, talking about Mr. McCain as not being a hero. Who the hell do you think you are, little girl? Who do you think you are? You know? You don't have to like this president to be respectful of him talking about the military and his son who died. You don't have to like him, but you must be respectful. You gotta be.
I would say that.
So there you go. There's Whoopi saying you must be respectful to the president. You've got to be. I'm not going to go down the route of showing you every clip of Whoopi Goldberg being disrespectful to Donald Trump. I'm not. Honestly, we'll be here for half an hour just looking at the clips that I've looked at today. I would like to show. I just can't. I don't want to go down that route. But what I want to go down the route of what she's saying there. Her instinct there, her instinct, did you notice? Her instinct to Lauren Boebert is not to have a conversation about what she said there. Her instinct is to go, shut up. You do not get to talk about our military. If you want to talk about our military, she said, we need to have a real talk about our military. Okay then, all right, well, you mentioned there for 7 or 8 years. The last 7 or 8 years. You're talking about Syria, etc., aren't you? Well, let's talk about the last 20 years, shall we? Let's talk about those men and women who you say they're the servicemen that you say you revere so much. Let's talk about them dying, shall we? Because you also said something, or she also said something during that little talk that she had. She said, for no good reason. They were dying for no good reason. Absolutely agree with you, Whoopi. Let's have a conversation about that, shall we? Let's have a conversation about your servicemen dying for no good reason. Because you were in Afghanistan for 20 years, and I'm sure that's a war that you supported, and you came out losing, having achieved nothing. Other than arming the Taliban, who you were supposed to be getting rid of. Because they were harbouring Osama bin Laden, who you killed years ago, carried on occupying Afghanistan anyway. Why? Because it was great for the military-industrial complex. That's the truth. But Whoopi, who wants to shut everybody up, who has an opinion that she doesn't like, shut the hell up, little girl, saying she's only 35, she is deciding who she thinks should get to say what they want to say. And don't do it there, she says. Don't do it there at the State of the Union. You know, there's a time and a place for these things. She's got a real problem with that, hasn't she? Well, like I said, one of the times when the State of the Union in the past was interrupted and sort of like people did a grandstanding thing, it was only a couple of years ago with Nancy Pelosi. And The View, the next day, did a bit of a segment on it. In fact, they did a couple, I think. Here's one of them with old Pete Buttigieg. That's how you say his name. Buttigieg. So he's a CIA puppet, just in case you didn't know. He's a CIA stooge. He's Mayor Pete. He's gay. So, you know, he must be good. He must be a good person. No, he's a CIA stooge. So this is after the State of the Union speech, when Nancy Pelosi ripped up the speech in front of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, you know, the handshake. This is what was said then. Now, as you can see, there's Whoopi. Let's see if she's jumping up and down and talking about, you know, the decorum. Should we see what the panel have to say about that? Let's have a listen.
President Pence compared Nancy Pelosi ripping up the president's speech. I always wanted to do that with the ripping up the Constitution. You know, I mean, I know
it's ripping up the Constitution. Do you see how? Do you see how the rhetoric changes from one side to the other?
I know it's.
You know what ripping up the Constitution looks like? Sending your lawyer into the well of the Senate to say that anything you do, even at the expense of national security, anything you do to benefit your own campaign is by definition the right thing to do and legal. That's ripping up the Constitution.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, Pete. I don't know whether you know this, but do you want to know what ripping up the current Constitution looks like? Well, it looks very much like, you know, having wars of aggression abroad with absolutely no oversight whatsoever and no vote on whether you're going to go into war at all, and having carte blanche to do it anywhere around the world at the whim of warmongers in your government. That's what ripping up the Constitution looks like. Ripping up the Constitution looks like the unwarranted spying on every single American right now that the CIA and NSA are doing, not just on people in your country, but on ours as well, in the UK and other countries around the world. That's what ripping up the Constitution looks like, you stooge. I could carry on. I mean, seriously, they scream about the Constitution over there in that country, but honestly, I don't think a single one of them, or very few of them, have read it. Because they piss all over it every single goddamn day of their lives.
That's right. I would agree with that constitutional interpretation. Before we go, we want to do a rapid fire round with you.
And that's it. Okay? That's it. They talked about the ripping up of the speech, and then they have a rapid fire round. Look, 41 seconds, and then they talk about a rapid fire, asking Pete Buttigieg what his favourite food is and what his favourite ice cream is. That's it! When Pelosi ripped up her speech. But Lauren Boebert, who shouted out those 13 names, when he's grandstanding off the back of dead servicemen, she reminds him, 13 died because of you pulling out of Afghanistan in a haphazard way, by the way, that killed 170 innocent Afghans. They didn't mention that. But that is being disrespectful. She wasn't jumping up there and saying it when Pelosi ripped up the speech, was she? Here is another instant of, I think it's just after that speech as well. Here's another one. Look who's on the panel, look.
I have a guest host today.
Our economy is stronger now than it's ever been.
Please welcome Alec Baldwin.
Only one time.
Alec, they said to me.
You tear up my speech while I'm talking.
No, they said to me, see if you can get Alec to do Donald Trump. And I said, he won't do it. P.S.
Of course he will.
That's it.
Well, let's get right to it, because the State of the Union was a lot to process last night.
So this is them talking about the Nancy Pelosi one.
And we're going to attempt to break some of it down. Now, the speech was bookended by tense moments between you-know-who and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Before the speech, it looked like he blew her off with the handshake. Some people say, no, he just didn't see it. Okay.
Well, he saw it.
Afterwards, Nancy tore up the speech in two. And what does this really say about the State of the Union? What does it really say about the State of the Union?
So here, they're laughing and giggling about it. What does it say about the State of the Union? The fact that, the leader of the House is just openly mocking the president there and disrespecting him. They're openly laughing about it. Meanwhile, somebody does something similar to Biden, being disrespectful, and a little girl.
She's playing hardball like he does. When they go low, we go lower. That's what.
With Biden, it's a case of show some decorum. There's a time and place for it. But just a couple of years ago when it was Trump...
What does it really say about the State of the Union?
She's playing hardball like he does. When they go low, we go lower.
When they go low, we go lower.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing that works with these criminals and fascists who are running the country right now. Sorry.
Criminals, fascists. This is the president they're talking about.
But that's what works.
I love your earrings, by the way.
Thank you.
No, I think that those shows are public displays which typically they would put on their best behavior. And things have deteriorated so much in the last several years that even when they're doing these very important ceremonial programs and so forth, live television events, the acrimony is on display. And it's
So that's what they had to say about the State of the Union in previous years. So you can see there the partisanship, you know, on that panel of the people, and all the same on that. You can see they're all sticking up for the president there. I didn't see the State of the Union this year. I saw little bits of it. But I do know people who do watch it and did encapsulate, you know, all the things that were missed. He talked about, obviously, the servicemen who died there in the haphazard withdrawal from Afghanistan, that many say that Biden was responsible for. 170 people were killed in that, by the way, 170 innocent Afghans in that strike, remember. And he obviously played on his son's death, who was a service person, in the same breath as talking about those 13 who died in the friendly fire in Afghanistan. But this is Graham Elwood. He said things Biden did not mention in his first State of the Union. Yemen. Interesting. Nobody wants to talk about Yemen, do they? Eh? And they haven't. 7 years now. The climate change IPCC report. Yeah, that came out last week. Did you know? I'll be talking about it in the next few days. It's already too late. That's the upshot of it. It's too late already for a lot of us. You know, I think we should go to war with Russia. I think that'll solve it. But, you know, that's just me. He didn't talk about student debt forgiveness. He didn't talk about Medicare for all. Biden didn't. He didn't talk about Syria. Didn't talk about homelessness. Didn't talk about backing neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Didn't talk about that. If I wasn't paying attention, Graham, and said, I would think Americans are doing great and US has never bombed anybody. That's what I think of State of the Unions. They are partisan. They are nonsense. But over in America, they sort of try and come together and say, oh, yes, it's all very good. Because it's the State of the Union. You have to say that America's doing well. You know? I want to go back to Whoopi, though, because there's something you might know about Whoopi. Maybe you don't. But she's just been suspended from The View. She's only just come back to The View because she was suspended for saying some dodgy remarks. It's got to be said. Dodgy at the very minimum. Let me just find you the clip I want to find you, because I do want to show a clip on this. So it'll bring you up to speed on exactly where we are with Whoopi, because she essentially said on The View that Jewish people, that World War II and Nazism and Hitler wasn't about race. Now, even as a child, I understood that World War II was about race. This is a little clip by Entertainment Tonight that I saw earlier. That's a pretty good explainer of what is going on over there. So take a look at this. Oops.
Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended for 2 weeks from The View.
And she's come back. She's come back to The View. I think this is a couple of weeks ago. She's been back. And now she's calling Lauren Boebert a little girl, saying that she's only 35. She should know better at 35. Well, Whoopi Goldberg's 60-odd. 62, I think she said in one clip, although she's certainly in her 60s. She should know better, don't you think?
Following this controversial comment she made on Monday's episode.
And let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. It's about man's inhumanity to man.
E.T. can...
That's what she said. Okay, now any idiot knows that it was about race. Hitler's whole ideology was the blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy. He wiped out pretty much any other section of society that he felt did not fit that description, and that's what his aim was.
Confirm that the 66...
At 60-odd, Whoopi should have known that. Which she didn't. She said what she said, and she got suspended.
Year-old co-host will not appear on the daytime talk show effective immediately. In light of her suspension, Kim Godwin, president of ABC...
I just want to fast forward because she kind of doubled down on this.
Released this statement.
Excuse me.
Quote, I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comments. While Whoopi has apologized, I've asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments.
So she got suspended, and then she went on Stephen Colbert and kind of like doubled down on the remarks that she made, which is just weird. This is what she said. 6 minutes long. It's 6 minutes long, which I'm not going to show the whole thing because she's 6 minutes long. But she doubled down on the comments weird, but she ended up apologising, and The View have had her back on, and now she's gone back on, and now she's pointing fingers at the 35-year-old in Congress who she says he's being disrespectful. She's got a prime time slot in the afternoon. I think it's midday, every day, talking to millions of people. That's okay. You know, the anti-Semitic stuff that she's spewing there, saying Jews aren't, it's not about race. World War II was everything about race, and it wasn't just Jews. Look, 5 to 6 million Holocaust victims. They went after everything in society. The Nazis did. Wasn't just Jews. Anything they felt subhuman. Roma, you know, gypsies, Serbs, Poles, the disabled. Yeah, the disabled. And it didn't matter whether the disabled were Jewish or not. Freemasons, Slovenes, homosexuals, Spanish Republicans and Jehovah's Witnesses. It was everything about race. And Whoopi Goldberg at her age should damn know it. And how you can censor people who were like Chris Hedges working at RT. You can censor them from telling their truth on the airwaves, but you can leave somebody who has got anti-Semitic views up like that, talking to millions of people on a daily basis, who clearly is a giant hypocrite at best. A giant uneducated hypocrite. You will let them on your airwaves, but you'll stop people like Lee Camp and Rachel Blevins and Chris Hedges from talking to your citizens. It's no wonder that the rest of the world considers your populace to be uneducated. It's no wonder that many of the Americans can't point to America on a map if these are the people who are educating them, while people like Chris Hedges are persona non grata. And the same goes for over here as well. But when it comes to Whoopi Goldberg, I've got a serious disdain for it, because it is people like her that cover for power. You know, it is people like her that the reason she's on The View, the reason she's allowed to come back to The View and she hasn't lost her job, and I'm not calling for her to lose her job here. I'm not calling for censorship. What I'm calling for is some actual common sense. You know, surely if Whoopi Goldberg gets to speak with her anti-Semitic bile, you know, and saying Jews, if she gets that and just gets a suspension, then clearly there's a double standard, isn't there? And like I say, the reason I've got a special disdain for her after seeing her antics over the last few years, she interrupted somebody who was no, let me find it. Let me find the clip. My fat fingers. Oh man, I've lost the clip. I'm sorry. I've lost the clip. I really should come better prepared for this, shouldn't I? Really. She jumped up and farted. I can't find the clip. She jumped up and farted when somebody was on her show saying that she was worried about vaccinating her children. This is way before COVID. She farted and jumped up. Yeah, she can't be anti-Semitic. She chose the name Goldberg. It's that's what somebody came out and said. I can't remember who that person was. Somebody just mentioned it in the chat at the corner of the eye. Somebody, she said that the person defending Whoopi Goldberg said she can't be anti-Semitic. She can't be anti-Jewish because she chose the name Goldberg because Goldberg is a stage name. Is it this? Is it this one?
You know what? Many people are refusing to get a flu shot this winter because almost half of Americans are convinced the flu shot can make them sick. Now, doctors insist that...
Now, remember, the stations that these programs are on, they're sponsored by Pfizer, they're sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. You know, every advert on TV, you've seen American television, every advert is about some sort of drug. You know, so you can't have anybody who's anti anything medical on TV in America. And Whoopi knows this, and Whoopi knows who pays her wages. This is why I've got a disdain for her. This is why I suggest that some of the stuff that she's doing is not just because she's misinformed. She's doing it on purpose, or that she's being hypocritical. She knows she's being a hypocrite. She knows calling Boba the bad, terrible person there, saying she needs to grow up and what have you, and then not saying a thing when Nancy Pelosi did her pathetic ripping up the speech. I wouldn't be surprised if that speech was serrated, by the way, so she could do it in... Here we go. Just watch this.
You know what? Many people are refusing to get a flu shot this winter because almost half of Americans are convinced the flu shot can make them sick. Now, doctors insist that it is biologically impossible. Do you all get the shot?
I will not get the shot. I feel like, why do I want to inject something into my skin that's gonna make...
Excuse me?
Yeah, whoa.
Hold on for a minute.
Better now. You know those breakfast burritos, they kill us every day. I tell you.
Watch again. Watch again.
Why do I want to inject something into my skin? I will not get the shot. I feel like, why do I want to inject something into my skin that's gonna make...
Excuse me?
Yeah, whoa.
Breakfast burritos.
Hold on for a minute.
See what I mean? You can't have any anti-medical stuff on the show. You can't have anybody... you know, having personal choice over their own body when it comes to a flu shot or anything like that, because that might cut into the profits of the people who sponsor our station. People like Whoopi Goldberg, who obviously haven't got a clue about anything when it comes to politics, they get to say whatever they want. You know? There's no censorship when it comes to them, even though, you know, they're misinformed at best. But the worst she's going to get is that 2-week suspension or whatever it was, and they hardly talked about it. I'm going to go back and I'm going to start looking at all the times that Whoopi Goldberg and those people on The View have mentioned the war in Yemen and talked about all those wars. I think that would make a pretty good video. I mean, if you want to really look after the troops, Whoopi, if you really want to look, you know, take care of your troops and you want to really, you know, show them some respect, stop sending them into unconstitutional, illegal wars based on lies for them to die so you can fart on The View to stop anybody, you know, spreading anything that might make people hesitant to get a flu shot. It is unfair that while this is happening, great journalists are being silenced. I think that's it, everybody. I think that's all I wanted to speak about. Yeah, that's it. I wanted to go more in depth about about Ukraine, but I can do that another time. I will I'll be back next week, I think, with a live show. Thank you very much, Paul, on PayPal. Thank you. I appreciate that. It doesn't have any message with it, at least, but thanks very much for all the support. Yeah, please go and subscribe to my mailing list on my website. The website's going to be changed. I'm going to do some work on it over the next week, so you won't see much of me probably until the end of next week. There will be the next live stream. I'm going to be doing some work on the website and trying to monetize things a little bit better. I'll also be hopefully back on TikTok. Hopefully, you know, things will get sorted out with that, and I think everybody will agree. I'm not doing anything that's intentionally nasty or anything like that. Even though I'm you know, I say some awful, and I think awful things about Whoopi Goldberg, I still try and be as respectful as possibly can. And I'd certainly try and get to the truth of things. So, you know, to keep videos be taken down and not understand why, and be at the situation now where I've got 8 million views in a week and it looks like I'm going to be banned. It's really unfair. I've got to be honest. It's a bit of a kick in the teeth. It's hard to mentally come to terms with it, because for years I've been banging my head up against a brick wall with regards to this and not being able to, you know, really grow the channel as much. And a lot of that is, you know, my own doing. I realise that I could have done more myself, but to get to the stage where now, having been silenced and having YouTube, you know, turn the dial down on me so I couldn't grow over the last few years, to then have a platform where I've got 8 million views in a week and then have it look like it could all get taken away, it's a real kick in the teeth, and I'm hoping it's not going to happen, but it might. And this is why everybody sort of in independent media, not everybody, but all of the solid core, if you like, was so dead against the censorship of Alex Jones. Because we knew they weren't going to stop there. It's like Naylor said on that tweet earlier, they're not going to stop with RT. It's the beginning. And the only way it's going to change is if we, you, everybody fights back and comes together. Left, right, centre, liberal, whatever your political persuasion, you need to come together and realise that we agree on 95% of things. All of us. But the tiny minority things that we don't agree on, we are allowing the powerful to let those things divide us. And are arguing amongst ourselves, screaming at each other, fighting each other, whilst the people who are dividing us, making all the rules why they don't adhere to any of them, take off with all the fucking money and all the fucking power and get us into a situation where we're facing World War fucking 3 because they don't know what to do to fix the problems at home. So yeah, to get to that situation where I'm getting to the stage with views where I really hoped I was, and then to be fearful that it's all going to get taken away just as it was starting to get going after years of banging my head up against a brick wall is worrying. And it's doubly pissed off. It's doubly pissing off when you see that happening to me and people at RT who are getting silenced and their livelihoods taken away from them, while people like Whoopi Goldberg get paid millions of pounds, millions of dollars a year to spread bullshit and lies and misinformed views on things that honestly 6-year-olds in this country know. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you very much for all your support. I'm going to get off. If I've missed anybody, I will catch you on the next live stream. Anybody who sent a super chat, I didn't see any coming through, but that's good news. It means Google aren't going to get any cut. Wonderful. Take care, everybody. I'll be back next week. I'll probably do some TikToks in the meantime, hopefully, if they don't ban me. Take care, everybody. And beware of the propaganda. It's absolutely off the chain at the moment. And stop watching the legacy media because they are misinforming you. Take care, everybody.